How do you feel about snakes? Maybe not a resounding cheer from most of us, but these animals often slither into our lives whether we like it or not. What makes them so intriguing is that they're so diverse, so unique, and deserve a mention. And this video is going to do just that. Wessie. A snake skin found on a picturesque riverbank in the northeast United States belongs to an anaconda, the latest twist in the baffling story of Wessie, a supposedly enormous snake that has become a local legend in the town of Westbrook, Maine. Sightings of the snake began in June when a woman filed a report with the Westbrook Police Department claiming to have seen a snake as large as a truck with a head the size of a basketball. Soon thereafter, a late-shift police officer patrolling near the first sighting saw a large snake eating a mammal, possibly a beaver, and on August 20th, a man walking along the Presumpscot River stumbled across the molted skin of a 12-foot-long snake near the other two sightings. With each sighting, the mystery deepened, and the local community's fascination with its new strange mascot grew. Clothing stores began selling Wessie-themed shirts. One local brewery even made a special edition beer in honor of the snake. It's kind of picked up steam with each sighting, and the social media thing has been big, says Westbrook Police Captain Sean Lally. A lot of people have taken it as a light-hearted thing, kind of like our Loch Ness Monster. As media buzz grew, Westbrook officials sent a sample of the snake skin off to John Pelkick, a biologist at the University of Texas at Tyler, for genetic analysis. Pelkick then sequenced the skin's mitochondrial genome and found that it belonged to an anaconda, a shocking find that officials announced. Hognose Snake. This interesting fellow is quite the timid snake. He's the kind who would try his best to avoid any possible confrontation. The hognose snake initially might give you the impression of a true bad guy, but it's all just an act. When threatened, it'll hiss like most snakes, then flatten its neck and raise its head off the ground like a cobra. If that doesn't deter the threat, the hognose resorts to stage 2 of its defense strategy and pretends to be dead. It does this by cleverly rolling on its back and playing dead. To sell the whole act, it even releases a foul odor and fecal matter from its cloaca and lets its tongue hang loose from the mouth. Quite the overdramatic snake if you ask me, but still so fascinating. Malaysian Snake. A humongous reticulated python measuring 8 meters in length was captured at a Malaysian construction site. And how big was it? The Malaysian snake was longer than 5 grand pianos, a pickup truck, and almost as long as an adult giraffe standing on the head of another giraffe. It was even longer than Medusa. In 2016, construction workers who were in the process of building a flyover on the popular tourist island called for emergency services after spotting the snake under a tree. Unfortunately, the excitement was short-lived as the python died a premature and controversial death. The sudden death of this great-sized Malaysian python, which came just 3 days after it was found, raised a lot of controversies regarding the manhandling of a reptile. According to a video that was first uploaded by a local news channel, a man was seen kicking the python. However, authorities have categorically denied and reported the fact that the python died on her own. It is believed that even longer snakes could be living in the Malaysian wilds. In 1912, a python found and shot on the island of Sulawesi was reported to be 10 meters long. Flying snake. Ever heard the idiom, when pigs fly? It doesn't mean that pigs can actually fly, but it's used to convey something that can never happen. Now, what if I say, when snakes fly? What would your reaction be? Firstly, it doesn't make any sense, and secondly, that it can never happen either. Well, you'll be surprised to know that there is some truth to this statement. A flying snake might not fly in the traditional sense of the word, but it can most certainly glide in the air. It doesn't have any wings to make this possible, but uses its own body to fly, and it does so by flattening it as much as possible mid-flight. This makes the snake a lot more aerodynamic and allows it to glide easily. It can usually be seen climbing trees and moving towards the end of branches and hanging from them. Once it decides on a direction, it'll leap off the branch and onto another tree branch, and so on. They can sometimes even cover 100 meters in just one flight. Pretty incredible, right? If you see this one flying towards your direction, don't panic. They're generally not a threat to humans and are considered only slightly venomous. Horned viper. Most of us are scared of snakes even with their regular physical attributes. The way they move, their scales, their extending tongue, their hiss, everything about them calls out some primal fear within us. But if that wasn't enough, nature took it up a level and added a pair of horns to some of these serpents. If you ever come across one with this kind of horns, then you're probably looking at a horned viper. Native to North Africa and around the Arabian Peninsula, these horned vipers prefer to live in deserts and semi-desert areas. Because of their colour and the type of scales, they perfectly blend in with the desert environment. They prefer to ambush their prey by submerging themselves under the sand, rocks or vegetation and strike rapidly at the prey when it's within range. Once caught, the snake holds them in its mouth until the venom takes effect. They generally hunt small birds and rodents but can also be a danger to humans if threatened. Their venom is known to cause swelling, hemorrhage, necrosis, nausea, vomiting and hematuria. Doesn't sound fun, does it? Scientists aren't entirely sure on why they have their distinct horns, but some claim that they help them blend better, while others say it protects their eyes from the sand. Either way, the horns give them a very devilish look, don't you agree? Brazilian Anaconda. Out of all of the creatures that we've talked about, this 33-foot-long anaconda is the craziest thing you'll watch today. In 2016, construction workers in Brazil stumbled upon a terrifying mega monster near the dam construction site in Brazil. The huge reptile, which weighs in at a whopping 63 stone, was discovered by the workers after they carried out a controlled explosion in the cave. This incredible footage shows the enormous body, which approximately measures 1 meter in diameter. After making the frightening discovery, the workers chained this Jurassic-like creature to a crane and later lifted off from the rubble, a move which was severely criticized by wildlife experts. It's believed that this giant beast may have died in the explosion, possibly being hit by falling debris, as its head appeared flat in the footage. Until now, it's not clear whether the anaconda was actually dead when it was found or if the workers intentionally killed it. In another similar event, 3 people were boating down the Santa Maria River in Brazil when they ran into a giant yellow anaconda, estimated to be a 17-foot-long snake. The people on board tried to prod the anaconda with wooden oars. Boaters also shot the video of the scene, which went viral. Wildlife authorities in Brazil proposed a heavy fine and prison time for chasing or hunting wildlife without a license. Three-eyed snake. A three-eyed snake found slithering down a road in the northern Australian town of Humpty Doo has sparked amusement in a country already accustomed to unusual wildlife. Rangers dubbed the unusual serpent Monty Python after finding it on a highway in late March. X-rays showed all 3 of its eyes were functioning and the extra socket likely developed naturally while the snake was an embryo, the Northern Territory Parks and Wildlife Commission said. Wildlife officers told the Northern Territory News the 40-centimetre or 18-inch carpet python was about 3 months old and died after about a month in captivity. Until today, I'd not ever seen a snake with 3 eyes, David Penning, an assistant professor of biology, told Live Science. I've seen snakes with 2 heads and some odd facial deformities, but nothing quite like this. King Cobra. Fully grown-up king cobras can be found in different colours to include black, yellow, green and brown. Their body is usually covered with white patterns similar to crossbars or chevrons. An additional feature to recognise them is their length, reaching up to 12 feet, and their deadly venom. Well, avoid identifying them with venom as it's much harder to resist it. They're called king cobras because they eat cobras, hence the king cobra considers other snakes their food instead of friends from the same species. King cobras are native to areas from northern India to southern China, including Hainan and Hong Kong. They're also found in Indonesia and the Philippines. They mostly reside in or near water bodies where humidity and temperatures stay constant. These include open or dense forests, mangrove swamps, and agricultural areas. They attack humans only if they feel cornered or threatened, therefore they cause around 5 deaths a year. Eastern Diamondback Rattlesnake. The Eastern Diamondback Rattlesnake is the largest of the 32 species of rattlesnake currently recognised. They're large, heavy-bodied snakes with broad heads. Adults are usually 4 to 6 feet long, but the one we've discovered for you is way larger than any of its typical relatives. In late 2009, photos began circulating on the internet depicting a giant snake that was caught and killed by an animal trapper. It appears to be a giant python, but carefully examining the footage evidence, it was observed that this was not a python, but a giant 15-foot-long Eastern Diamondback rattlesnake. In fact, the largest ever caught on record. A little more comparative study reveals that one bite from a snake of this size could contain enough venom to kill over 40 full-grown men. The size of the snake alone was larger than the hand of a normal-sized man, and the pain of its strong bite would be comparable to the agony of being stabbed by a curved, quarter-inch diameter screwdriver, not once, but twice. A snake of this size could easily swallow a 2-year-old child, a big dog, and mammals larger than its size. Now just ask yourself, what has this snake been feeding on, and where are its offspring? Medusa Python. The The python you're looking at right now is Medusa, that holds the official world-breaking measurement of 25 feet 2 inches that makes it the longest ever captive snake. She also weighs in around 350 pounds. This record measurement was taken back in 2011, and since then she's only grown in size. And guess what? When you hold Guinness World Record, you don't have to justify again until you're challenged, and Medusa is still unchallenged. Medusa is a reticulated python and a captive resident of Full Moon Productions in Kansas City, United States. This 15-year-old snake required 20 strong handlers to hold her at full length, and her diet consists of a combination of rabbits, hogs and deer served bi-weekly. She's been known to eat a whole 18-kilogram deer in one sitting. So if any of you is interested in enjoying the thrilling company of this giant snake, you can pay a visit at the Edge of Hell or Macabre Cinema Haunted House located downtown of Kansas City, where she's kept on a display. Two-Headed Snake. You might find something like this inside a witch's hut deep in the forest, a two-headed snake used for black magic or some diabolic ritual. But their existence in nature is less to do with curses and more to do with development. Similar to Siamese twins, these two-headed snakes have a similar story. During the fetal stage, the snake develops into two identical twins in one body and are born as such. If it can happen with humans, it very much can happen with animals. A snake breeder in Florida found this two-headed snake and brought it to these vets. They were pleasantly surprised when they found out the snake doesn't just have two separate heads, but also two different hearts as well. I hope this guy lives for a long time, since they are incredibly rare in nature. Congo giant snake. Tales about enormous snakes are very frequent throughout the tropical regions of the world. Sensationalist news, sometimes anchored on dubious witnesses and unclear photos, appear frequently in South American and African newspapers. These assertions, however, aren't viable in an encounter chronicled in 1959 by a helicopter pilot flying in the Congo region. Colonel Remy van Leerde, who lived from 1915 to 1990, was a Belgian pilot who served during World War II in the Belgian and British Air Forces. In 1959, as full colonel, he commanded the airbase at Kamina in the Belgian Congo. While there in the Katanga region and returning from a mission by helicopter, he encountered a giant Congo snake emerging from a hole as he flew over the forests, describing the snake as being close to 50 feet or 15 meters in length, earning its place amongst the largest snakes ever reported. Upon the incredible discovery, he then turned around and made several passes over the snake at a lower altitude in order to allow another person on board to photograph the creature. Van Leerde claims that as he flew lower for a closer inspection, the snake rose up approximately 10 feet, giving the impression it would have attacked the helicopter if it had been within striking range. "I feel and I'm convinced if I'd been in its range, it would have struck at me," Colonel Leerde confessed. He later described the giant snake as having a dark shade of green and brown with a white-coloured belly and claimed the snake's head was 3 feet wide and that the jaws were of a triangular shape. Van Leerde is considered a reliable eyewitness and his testimony is convincing. His depiction is very realistic and familiar to snake experts. On an episode of Arthur C. Clarke's mysterious world entitled Dragons, Dinosaurs and Giant Snakes, Van Leerde claimed it could have easily eaten up a man. Multiple experts and zoologists analysed several of his pictures of the giant Congo snake and have verified them as authentic. They verified the size of the serpent by comparison analysis to the ground features around the snake. Atheris Hispa. Odd-looking snakes are quite the rare treat since they're not widely distributed. The Atheris Hispa is a snake which only lives in Central Africa, so good luck finding it elsewhere. These bristly-looking snakes are unique because of their extremely keeled dorsal scales. They can be generally seen climbing reeds and stalks and can also be seen basking in the sun on top of flowers and leaves. They hunt mammals, frogs, lizards and even birds sometimes. Not much is known about their venom, but it is a neurotoxin. It can be fatal to humans if timely first aid and antivenom are not administered. Maybe best appreciate its unique look from a distance. Borm slugs. This dangerous 5-foot-long terrestrial serpent is technically called Dyspholidus typus and is found in African lowland forests, groves, shrubs and arid savannas. They possess long, thin bodies which merge with the surroundings and mostly reside up in the trees and are sometimes found on the ground. Borm slug is the most venomous snake found among the fanged fraternity. They are capable of opening their mouth up to 170 degrees and injecting extremely hemotoxic venom into the victims, which instantly starts decimating their circulatory systems. The victim's blood can stop clotting and can result in death due to external and internal bleeding. Its symptoms may take hours to appear as its venom is slow-acting. Borm slugs don't attack unless threatened or infuriated by the offender. Spider-tailed horned viper. Vipers are nothing unusual and we've heard of them quite often, but not all vipers are created equal. Some have an edge when it comes to hunting their prey. The spider-tailed horned viper is unlike any other viper or any other snake in general. What makes these incredible creatures so unique is how the tail is shaped. It has a bulb-like end which is bordered by long leg-like scales, which gives the tail the appearance of a spider. The spider-tailed horned viper waves around his tail tip, mimicking the movement of a spider in an effort to bait insectivorous birds. When the bird is within its striking range, the cleverly hidden snake shoots out and bites into the unsuspecting bird. Lunch is served. Spitting cobra. Cobras have earned their reputation for being one of the deadliest snakes out there. You think you know enough about cobras by watching animal shows and reading books, but this next snake might question your knowledge about them. Spitting cobras are generally species of cobras which are capable of shooting out their venom from their fangs into the eyes of the threat. Yeah, sounds hard to believe, but they really do exist. They're mostly found in the forests of South Asia and Africa and the savannas. If you ever come across such a species, it's best to be prepared by wearing some eye protection and to avoid getting its venom in your eyes. Even though the venom doesn't do much damage if it touches mammalian skin, maybe a bit of delayed blistering, it can, however, create problems if it hits the eye. It's been known to cause permanent blindness, chemosis, and corneal swelling. They can shoot their venom as far as 6.6 feet and quite quickly, so you might get hit by one even if you could react to it. Though they spit their venom, they can also deliver it through a bite as well, like any other snake. Sunda Island Pit Viper. So far, we've seen a lot of snakes with varying characteristics. Though most of them probably won't bring up feelings of awe and admiration, there is a species of snake which deserves our praise for its beauty. This blue beauty can only be seen in Indonesia and East Timor. They're called the Sunda Island Pit Viper or White-Lipped Island Pit Viper. But don't just stand still and be mesmerized by their beauty, since these snakes are considered to be very aggressive. They don't prefer to stay idle and wait for their prey. They actively seek out and attack and bite. They generally prey on small animals like mice and frogs, but that doesn't mean that they leave humans alone. If threatened, they won't have any qualms about making the first move and attacking. In search for food, they often venture into cities and can cause problems for the people living there. Though the bite might not kill you, it still has a slew of symptoms like pain, swelling, and sometimes necrosis and severe bleeding. Once it attacks its prey, it waits it out until the toxins have taken effect, and then slowly moves in to swallow the meal whole. If you find their blue colour beautiful, you'll also be interested to know that they come in green and yellow variants as well. Gigantatus Gastini. There's this gigantic snake called Gigantatus Gastini. It's the only member of the Gigantophis genus that ever existed, but now they're extinct. Before 2009, people thought of this snake as the king of snakes, the biggest one ever, until Titanoboa from Colombia showed up. Supposedly, around 40 million years ago, Gigantophis Gastini lived in what's now the Sahara, specifically where Egypt and Algeria are today. A guy named Jason Head from the Smithsonian Institution studied the fossils of this giant snake. He compared its vertebrae with those of today's largest snakes. After this study, he thought this ancient snake might have been anywhere between 9 to 10 meters long. Just imagine that. If it was indeed 10 meters, it would have been more than 10% bigger than its closest living relatives. However, some later estimates, based on more specific calculations, think Gigantophis Gastini was closer to 7 meters. We don't know much about this massive snake species. Mostly, we have a few fossils. In 1901, paleontologist Charles William Andrews shared the discovery of this snake and guessed it was around 10 meters long. He named it after Sir William Garstin. In 2013, some folks found Gigantophis vertebrae in Pakistan that looked similar to those from Egypt. How they're connected is still a mystery. Maybe this snake was a world traveller. Burmese Python. Burmese pythons are much longer and heavier than any of Florida's native snakes, which routinely grow 6 to 7 feet long. The scales appear smooth, unlike the rough textured scales of native water snakes. Burmese pythons are tan in colour with dark giraffe blotches on the back and sides. They can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh over 200 pounds. In 2019, measuring more than the height of a one-story building, a 17-foot, 140-pound Burmese python was caught in Florida. Burmese pythons represent true snake breeds by holding the traditional title of a vicious predator. Their existence proved to be a severe threat to native wildlife and ecosystems of South Florida. A substantial decline in the Everglades mammal population was recorded recently. Burmese pythons are known to eat imperiled species such as woodstalks, key largo, and limpkins, as well as large animals like alligators, white-tailed deer, and bobcats. They kill by grasping a victim with their sharp teeth while coiling and squeezing their bodies around the hunt until it suffocates. So do research before you put Burmese python top of the list of your exotic pets, and remember, don't let it loose. Inland Typan. Due to the extreme lethality of their venom, inland Typan is mostly referred to as the fierce snake. Its venom is more toxic than the sea snake, and its single bite is sufficient to kill 100 fully grown humans. Its distinctive features like fast movement, agility, and high accuracy combined with a dreadful bite lead to sure disaster. They are quite shy and usually prefer to move away from challenging situations, therefore it's advisable to let it escape and not to provoke it. They're considered to be the leading cause of human death as compared to other snakes. They're found in Australia. A person bitten by the inland taipan is likely to experience awful symptoms like headache, nausea, vomiting leading to stomach pain, dizziness, convulsions, organ failure or damage, and ultimately death. Black Mumber. Black Mumber is one of the most frightening snakes on the African continent. It's considered among some of the intelligent snakes with its swift-moving body and immensely dreadful nature. Generally, they reach up to a length of 8.2 feet, but some can grow up to 14 feet. Normally, the black mamba is not aggressive, but it will not hesitate to attack if threatened. They raise their heads off the ground, flatten their bodies and their hoods, and finally bite many times. Their venom is extremely toxic. Just 2 drops of venom can suffice to kill a human, whereas they carry about 20 drops in their fangs. Its venom comprises cardiotoxins and neurotoxins, which affect the heart and nervous systems. The victim will experience pain and light burning, immediately followed by losing control of speech and tongue, blurred vision, drowsiness, medical confusion, and ultimately paralysis. Tetrapodophis. This snake has a pretty fancy name, no lie. It breaks down to four-footed snake in Greek. This ancient creature lived in Brazil a long time ago during the early Cretaceous period. Here's the interesting part. It looks like a snake, but has 4 legs. Now, some experts think Tetrapodophis might be one of the early snakes, while others disagree. Let's talk about its legs. They're not very long, and it seems Tetrapodophis didn't use them for walking or digging. Instead, these legs look like they could grab onto things, kind of like a sloth or certain birds. Some even say its spoon-like feet might have been useful for grabbing prey or, surprisingly, for snuggling with mates. Yep, this was a snake that liked to snuggle. Some believe that this snake-like body has evolved many times in the Squamate group, creating legless lizards like the European slowworm or the oddworm lizard bipeds. They are believed to have lost their legs but kept the front ones. However, real snakes are believed to be a unique result of these evolutionary experiments. Tetrapodophis has some features seen in other legless lizards, but only snakes have a special combo of features. This includes backward-pointing teeth, a single row of belly scales, a unique way their vertebrae connect, and a relatively short tail compared to lizards and crocs. All these features suggest that Tetrapodophis is more like a snake, even though its legs might make you raise an eyebrow. Green Anaconda. Weighing in at 550 pounds, the aptly named giant green anaconda is the largest snake in the world, considering its length-to-weight ratio. This species averages about 17 feet in length, though some of the individuals have been reported to grow as long as 30 feet. And this aquatic monster has been known to measure as much as 3 feet around the middle. These reptiles are believed to have slithered around the world from 58 million to 60 million years ago. But don't worry, green anacondas don't bite. Instead, this giant snake is a notorious predator that cuts off the oxygen supply to its victims either by drowning or squeezing them so hard in the body roll till the soul departs. There are some reports of native South Americans seeing anacondas up to 50 feet long, and believe it or not, early European explorers in their historic records have described 100-foot-long giant anacondas. Thankfully, no one has caught or measured an anaconda anywhere near that size. So, would you want to jump in the water after a giant anaconda to try and measure a snake big enough to kill you? Before moving on to number 1 on our list, we've got something that'll be your worst nightmare ever. A man in China recently claims that he's seen the world's biggest snake, and that the dragon-like snake is the reason for the 6.0 magnitude earthquake that rocked China on January 17th, 2020. How big is the snake, you ask? It's a terrifying 390 feet. Wait, what? It's okay, don't panic. The news turned out to be fake. Phew. Yibin, Sichuan, China was rocked by a 6.0 magnitude earthquake on January 17th, resulting in at least 12 dead and 134 injured. And a 50-year-old man has been detained for spreading rumours that the deadly earthquake was caused by a giant dragon-like snake. The manipulated image was first uploaded to Weibo by Zhang on the first week of February, following the earthquake in Yibin, Sichuan on January 17th. It appears to be a huge snake emerging from the hillside with hundreds of people nonchalantly standing by its side. In the original post, the caption read, "An earthquake took place in Yibin as caused severe debris flow. A 120-metre dragon with a diameter of 1.5 metres jumped out of the water at 2 p.m. today, attracting thousands of people. Experts have flown here and said that this dragon has something to do with the earthquake." The image quickly went viral on Chinese social media, drawing much attention and causing huge panic, reported National Business Daily. Yibin Cyber Police quickly attended to the matter and arrested the suspect on February the 3rd in Chongqing. Titanoboa. A really big snake called Titanoboa is believed to have lived around 58 million years ago, not long after dinosaurs are thought to have been extinct. Picture a massive hot and humid swampy jungle with turtles having giant shells and crocodile relatives growing larger than 3.5 meters. Also, there were lungfish about 2 meters long, much bigger than today's Amazon lungfish cousins. Now imagine Titanoboa, a huge snake over 12 meters long and weighing more than 1,000 kilograms. It looked like today's boa constrictor, but lived in the water like an anaconda. This giant snake could easily take down animals in its way. Scientists named it Titanoboa, and it's the largest snake ever. Discovering Titanoboa may tell us secrets about Earth's past and hint at our future. Studying it helps us learn about the conditions on the planet that allowed such big creatures to exist. When the CERN team found Titanoboa, they hit the jackpot. It was as heavy as a small rhino and as long as a school bus. If you don't want to be squeezed by Titanoboa, remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's like having a Titanoboa repellent.